Well, just 3 games on tap tonight in the NHL, but especially in the East, it is a tight race for a playoff spot right now. There are 6 teams separated by just 3 points, and one of the teams pressing is Detroit on a 7-game win streak to just be 2 points back in the wild card race. Now, we're going to break down a couple of teams in the East, and this is the latest on the fourth period. It's presented by CCM Hockey. I'm Kate Pedersen, joined by David Pagnotta. And Dave, let's start in Ottawa, where Sens GM Steve Staios spoke with the media on Sunday afternoon, and we got a bit of a sense of how he's looking at the trade deadline. You know, he's kind of going in with an open mind. If the right deal shows up, then he's going to do it. But he is thinking long term. He wants to make sure that all the decisions that he's making now will benefit them bigger picture. So,
Yeah.
with 20 games before the deadline, what do you think they're actually going to do if they do something?
Well, they don't have a ton of cap space, so anything they do will take a little bit of creativity. Now, they can finagle a little bit, send some guys down that are waiver exempt. But this team is looking at, as you mentioned, this season and beyond, and next season as they battle for playoff positioning. Steve Staios has acknowledged that he would like to add to his group. He would like to enhance their chances, but at the same time, isn't going to rush into a decision and isn't going to overpay for a short-term fix, again, with a long-term in mind. So the Ottawa Senators, again, not a lot of cap space, but they can get a little bit creative in the types of moves they potentially make. They wouldn't mind adding some secondary scoring to their lineup in their middle six, even with David Perron on LTIR eventually coming back. And we know, without question, the blue line is an area of concern for this club moving forward. If they can bring in somebody to stabilize the back end, that's certainly something that Stales would like to do.
Okay, and over in Columbus, Don Waddell met with the media, and he said he's sort of approaching it with an open mind in the sense that they have guys they could shop around, and they're interested, but only selling at the right price. So he's taking a bit of a patient approach to this. So I wonder, with that strategy in mind, do you think that there's someone out there that could be a good fit? And what does that sort of mindset do for the future of an Ivan Provorov or maybe a Matthew Olivier?
Yeah, Sean Corrali's another one. They have a number of different pending unrestricted free agents on this roster. They've had some contract talks with Olivier's camp. They're going to explore that possibility with Provorov as well. But where they are right now, as we're recording this, they're in a playoff spot. They're in a wild card position, one up on Ottawa, who we just mentioned. And, they kind of want to continue moving forward. And Don Waddell acknowledged this, their GM, the other day, where if they're in contention, give me a reason to help you. At the same time, if the right price is met for a Provorov or an Olivier, for example, if they don't get extensions done, they will look at it. Conversely, if they don't get those prices and still may not be able to solidify these guys into new deals, they're going to view it as their own rentals. And that's something Waddell acknowledged too. We can move forward with our own quote unquote rental before the deadline and going towards the playoff stretch. So Columbus, as you said, they're kind of using a little bit of patience here. They don't want to rush things. At the same time, if Waddell can benefit his club or help his club's chances by adding a piece, that's something that they could do. They have a ton of cap space. They're not afraid to spend the money. And now with their younger kids performing, if they can add something to it, and it doesn't cost them a pretty penny, that's also something to look at.
All right. Well, one team that is definitely in the mix, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we've talked about this over the last few weeks. It's no secret that they want to add a center. Now, will that be a second line center? Will it be a third? We'll have to wait and see. But who are they looking for? What kind of player? And also, is there someone on their current roster that they could maybe dangle and add to a package for that added value?
Yeah, Kate, I think second or third line, as you mentioned, is the priority. A mid six, perhaps interchangeable type of piece that can come in there and stabilize either a second or third unit. At the same time, if they can't find it, left side on the left wing could be an option if they keep John Tavares at center moving forward. But another team, not a ton of cap space. It's going to take a little bit of creativity from Brad Treliving. One name we've heard since the offseason has been Nick Robertson. He's a player who's still out there. He's got a little bit of value from a dollar perspective, so it would allow Toronto a little bit of added flexibility from a cap side of things if they move him out in a deal for an asset or move out some draft or get some draft picks and then flip those picks later to solidify your middle six. But Toronto's active. They're looking. It's no secret. And we'll see kind of where they end up. Do they circle in on a Brock Nelson, who's going to cost you a first-round pick in a package along with the prospect? Or do you look at alternative options that come with a lower price tag and a lesser salary cap hit? Maybe a third line ad. It's purely hypothetical, but Christian Dvorak in Montreal available, $4.45 million cap hit. The Habs have one retention slot left. Whether it's Toronto or another team, he would kind of stabilize things on a third line where he's playing right now in Montreal. So that's another name to look at, not necessarily for the Leafs, but just in general across this trade market.
Okay, well, speaking of the trade market, we're going to wrap things up here and we're going to beef up our coverage between now and the trade deadline. But we talked earlier in the season about how busy the chatter has been, a little bit abnormally busy ahead of the holidays. What do you think right now? What's the pulse check overall?
Yeah, talks are continuing, and they're going to start to escalate over the next, say, week to 10 days. There are a lot of teams that wouldn't mind getting business done towards the end of January, early February, before the Four Nations tournament, or Four Nations face-off, we'll call it the correct term. There's no roster freeze during the break in the NHL schedule, but still, teams would like to get their job done earlier because you're only going to have about a 12, 13-day window between returning to action and the trade deadline. So we should see activity picking up over the next couple of weeks here, which is why we're ramping up our coverage too.
Awesome. Well, Dave, as always, thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for watching. This is the latest on the fourth period presented by CCM Hockey.